Welcome back to this Gentle Awareness Through Movement series in the Feldenkrais Awareness Summit. I'm Dorothy Henning, and you can learn more about me and my Feldenkrais practice at integrativemovement.us. This lesson is circling the hip, circling the breath. Please lie down on your back on a mat on the floor or on a bed is fine. Get comfortable and settle in, putting something under your head if you like. Observe the contact your body is making with the floor or bed. Along your back, your shoulders and arms, your legs. Not judging or changing anything. Just noticing. Bring your attention now to your hips lying on the floor or bed, to the pressure on the surface behind your left hip and your right hip. What shape does this pressure make on each side? Is there more pressure on one side compared to the other? Does one hip seem higher in front, forward, to the ceiling than the other? Is there a space behind your lower back? And is there more space behind your lower back on the right or on the left? Draw your attention to your ribs, to the entire rib cage, and the movement your ribs make as you breathe, that your chest moves as you breathe, expanding forward, to the sides, and even towards your back as you breathe in, then softly retreating from this expansion as you breathe out. Are you aware of the ribs under your arms that spread a little to allow the breath to enter? And then the soft retreat of these ribs as you breathe out. Do you observe any movement of the breath in your lower ribs near your waist? If you don't notice something I mention, don't worry. Whatever you notice is fine. There is not a wrong or right way. There is only your experience, and your experience is just right for you. Please roll to your left side. If it is not comfortable for you on your left side, you may do this lesson on your right side. Adjust if you want something more under your head. Stack your legs one on top of the other and bend them so your thighs are at about a 90-degree angle with your trunk. Not doing anything uncomfortable. Adjusting a little. And now please observe your breathing now that you are on your side. Your belly softly expanding and falling forward. Perhaps you notice some movement of your breathing toward your back now that the back is free and not in contact with a surface. Now, keeping your legs resting together, please do a small movement of lifting your hip in the direction of your shoulder. It's like a shrug, as you do with your shoulder, only you are doing it with your hip. Slowly breathing as you do a quiet movement, and quietly you release the hip to softly go back to neutral, to home. You have only one intention, moving your hips softly, nothing else to do or concern what anyone else thinks. You are simply moving your hip and looking for ease, comfort, and enjoyment. Slowly breathing softly noticing how the movement may echo through your entire self. Perhaps you feel the movement in your ribs or shoulder, softening anywhere there could be unnecessary contraction, softening at your neck, checking your jaw. Your tongue is resting. Savoring the return of the hip to neutral, the slow coming home. Observe how the ribs on the left expand as you shorten the ribs on the right as you bring up the hip. And as you release the hip, softly the ribs on the left return from their expansion. Now, could you explore this idea? Where as you release the hip to softly return to neutral, consider the possibility of allowing the ribs on the left to remain spacious and long, not by pushing or forcing, but just considering the possibility of allowing the length to remain on the left. This is not something to accomplish, but merely an idea to consider. Of course, your left side will shorten a bit as you return the hip to neutral, since you are lying on your side, but just considering this possibility of allowing the length on the left, having space and length on both sides of your ribs. And pause, resting a moment. Moving softly and gently is an opportunity to be very kind to yourself. Gentle movement is like gentle touch from the inside. Caring, accepting, reassuring. Now could you gently begin a movement of your hip lengthening a little, going just a little bit towards your feet. It's really a very small movement. And you may feel you get a little long at your waist on the right. And on the left, there are some changes. Softly moving in that direction, savoring the release as you come back, the release of the effort. Repeating this movement 2 or 3 times. Breathing softly to support the movement. And pause a moment. Now could you move your hip a little bit forward so the knee perhaps on the right just slides a bit toward the end of the left or just a pinch past it. It's not a very big movement. Sliding a little forward, return to neutral, and then continue and slide the hip, moving it just a little back. And you may notice the knee slides a little bit, just beginning to be a little behind the left knee. And go gently back and forth this way, passing through neutral, passing by home before continuing. Having an idea where your neutral is, where home is, as you go a little forward and a little back, letting your attention sweep throughout you, noticing where else do you feel this movement other than at your hip and your leg. Perhaps at the ribs on the left. Or you soften and feel an echo of the movement through your neck as it speaks softly through your spine up to your head. Allow this movement to reverberate through you. And now please leave this and pause. Breathing softly, resting. And now you have done this movement in the 4 directions, up and down and forward and back. Can you connect these 4 directions and make a soft circle? Not big, but just see how fluid it can be, going toward this idea, not forcing. How round. Knowing where the middle is. Can you know where the middle is? Just imagine as you go around in this circle, and what else is circling? At your ribs. Maybe you feel a difference in the pressure under the left side of your face, and you're breathing. And can your breath circle, in a sense, to help circle the movement of the hip as you breathe in and out? And going around, gently in and out, as this movement becomes a very soft, full-bodied movement, or you imagine it's a full-bodied movement, not doing anything uncomfortable, but allowing your senses, your comfort and ease to guide you. And please pause. And can you now continue the movement, but only with your breath? So there's no actual movement of your hip, but your breathing is circling. It's as if your breathing is circling your hip, and you imagine the movement. You imagine it. Letting the breath support the imaginary movement. And then leave this, and please roll onto your back. Observe if you notice any changes in the contact with the surface along the floor or bed. Any changes since the beginning of the lesson, and the contact at your hips, right and left. And compare how high the hips are toward the direction of the ceiling. Any changes since the beginning of the lessons? Doing these movements on one side gives you the opportunity to notice differences. You are using your brain for something it does well. It discerns. It discerns differences. And in this way, you may discover new neuronal pathways, new possibilities. You learn. And if you like, you could listen to this lesson later, lying on the other side. For now, observe your breathing, the movement in your ribs, under your arms. How is the space available now for the breath to enter? Noticing at your chest, the lower ribs near your waist, the expansion as you breathe in, and the retreat of the expansion as you breathe out. And resting in your breath. This is the end of the lesson.